6 real-world asset cryptos with the biggest potential for growth in the coming weeks and months, which if you look at this chart will be the most explosive growth phase of this bull market so far. I know people are feeling a little uncertain about where we are, and I'm going to address that in this video. I'm also going to talk about the 6 individual real-world asset cryptos and why you should be paying attention to them and the real-world asset narrative, which at the moment is one of the top performing but most underrated narratives out there. Do me a favor, hit that like button. Let's get into today's video. Now guys, I know many people out there are feeling really uncertain with the markets chopping around. We don't know whether this is even going to be a bull market, but guys, this happens time and time again over the last few bull markets, and we're right in the exact same position as we were before. You can see everyone around these areas of time was speculating. No altcoin season. Is an altcoin season even going to happen? And this happened in 2017, and it's happening again in 2020. In 2020, from the 7th of December, we then saw around 8 weeks of sideways action before Bitcoin pushed higher. And the 7th of December until now is probably around 8 or 9 weeks. Bitcoin breaks just above previous all-time highs. It goes sideways for a bit, and then it sends the next move, which will trigger a breakdown in the Bitcoin dominance. And as we look across at the Bitcoin dominance here, things are looking no different. And I will make a video later on today, so make sure you're subscribed, going into more detail about why we're actually still pretty early for altcoins out there and why there will still be significant moves coming from here. Now, right now, everyone is focusing their attention to AI and AI agents. And that's all very well because it's obviously going to be one of the top performing narratives of this bull market. But I believe this bull market will be very much more narrative driven, with certain narratives picking up and seeing huge growth phases while others maybe sit quiet for a bit and then move after, which means you want exposure to not only the AI narrative, not only perhaps the DeFi narrative, but you want some exposure to each different narrative. But there's one narrative above all that's actually been outperforming the market that's just been a little bit quiet. And that is real world asset cryptos, which you can see looking at this chart have actually been seeing some massive growth under the radar. And real world asset cryptos take different forms. Effectively, all they're doing is bringing real world value on chain for various different benefits, which we will talk about as we go through the coins on this video. Now, if you didn't know why real world assets was something you should definitely be holding, you're probably aware of who Blackrock is, the world's largest asset manager with around $10 trillion of assets under management, which is about 5 times the value of Bitcoin's market cap. Pretty big, right? And if you listen to what Larry Fink says here,
we believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets. And that means every stock, every bond will have its own, basically, QSIP. It'll be on one general ledger. We would have instantaneous settlement. Think about all the costs of settling bonds and stocks. But if you had a tokenization, everything would be immediate. And so we believe this is a technological transformation for financial assets.
Then you'll realize that we want exposure to real world assets, because he said that back in March of last year when Blackrock launched a $100 million tokenized asset fund. And at that point, everyone suddenly started to search for real world asset cryptos. And look at the attention that ballooned into this area. Remember, you don't want to be buying when the attention is ballooning. You want to buy before the attention balloons, and that's how you actually make money in crypto. So while the attention isn't really on real world assets, we have to be aware that not only BlackRock are building in the space, but also people like the Chainlink CEO have made statements like real world asset valuation will flip the valuation of the entire crypto market by the end of this bull cycle. If that doesn't sound promising enough, then I don't know what will. So, without further ado, let's jump in and look at some different cryptos within the real-world asset class. Now, when it comes to real-world assets, there is one coin that has massively outperformed all the others, and it won't make it into our 6 coins that we're going to talk about today, although I do think it's worth addressing. This is Mantra, or OM, and you can just see this is what happens, and this is what real-world assets are showing us is going on right now. Why am I not going to focus on this? Well, because, guys, it has seen some massive growth already, and this is what we're going to likely see across a lot of different altcoins out there. Right now, we're probably in and around this area, with many of you doubting whether or not we're going to have a bull market or not. Just wait and see what is going to happen in the coming weeks for many of the altcoins you're holding, because it's going to be very exciting indeed. So Mantra has obviously seen an incredible bull market. If you're holding this, it does look like it's ready for continuation, but I don't think you're going to see massive upside from here, and there's probably some better value that you can find. Now, in crypto, it's important to have exposure to not only big market cap coins and smaller market caps. Why? Because as you're probably finding out, if you've been buying into smaller market cap coins in December, the the market has pulled back quite aggressively. And in smaller market cap coins, that pullback can be much more aggressive, so larger market caps are probably a safer bet. Ondo, however, has a big market cap of $4.1 billion, and due to the markets pulling back and recent unlocks and other bits and pieces about Ondo, we are now at a very good point where we've got a larger market cap coin with a good bit of stability behind it that has actually also experienced a decent pullback and is now finding support in and around this zone. So at $4.1 billion, Ondo is the biggest coin that we'll talk about today, but by no means should be overlooked because of the size of the market cap. Ondo is partnered up with Blackrock, which is obviously pretty exciting. Now, Ondo is offering institutional grade finance. Effectively, what it does is it allows you to buy coins such as the USDY, OUSG, okay, and earn yields on them. These yields, as you can see, are pretty good. Now, effectively, what it does with all the money that you're putting on the platform is it rewards you for this, and then it lends out those funds to institutions. I'm talking like Wall Street level institutions are now borrowing money on chain from the likes of Ondo Finance. Their team predominantly came across from traditional finance companies like Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, etc., and is one of the more star-studded teams across crypto. It's built out across 11 different ecosystems, and the total value locked on Ondo accounts for more than 70% of all the total value locked across real-world asset platforms. They also have Wall Street summits coming up, like this one here on February the 6th, which I think could be catalyst to see more exciting news reveals and growth. Therefore, after recent pullbacks, Ondo is looking pretty solid. I know this is a coin that many people have been looking into and wondering whether it's a good time to buy. Now, obviously, I can't give that advice because that would be financial advice and I'm not qualified to do it, but many people have been buying coins up here, and actually this is a far better time to buy into them than up there. Because at some point, another news article is going to come out from Blackrock, or another news article will come out from Donald Trump, or whatever it is, with regards to real world assets, with regards to tokenization of assets. And then you know how things go. Everything suddenly wakes up and explodes like it did during the announcements of last year. So when it pulls back, we're looking for areas at which we saw big growth from. Here we can see Ondo previously had some significant growth. It's now been bouncing in and around this green zone, which is between $1.14 and $1.27. In my opinion, that gives a fairly solid entry. This coin is likely, in my opinion, to give maybe a 5x during this bull market, but a far more reliable 5x than perhaps you're going to see out of a lot of other crypto coins out there. Now, possibly I'm being a little bit conservative there, but I do think this is a much safer coin for some solid returns than many out there. It's regulated across Europe, the US. It's partnered up with BlackRock, need I say more. Now, next up is Artrade with a $39 million market cap. Significantly smaller perhaps than Ondo, and actually does something quite different, but just shows you the kind of level of variety that's now coming into real world assets and the potential of blockchain technology going into the future. Artrade is a real world asset marketplace for different types of artwork, luxury goods, etc. And this is really pretty exciting because they do things like fragmenting drawings and paintings from very famous artists, like this drawing here from Pablo Picasso, where you can see they've received $200,000 from 159 separate investors. I know, I'm shocked too that people would pay that much money for a drawing like this, but obviously it's associated with Pablo Picasso, who's a pretty well-known name. Now, this makes for a very exciting environment going forward because lots of us out there might have considered in the past that we would like to invest in things like different types of artwork, but obviously don't have millions and millions of dollars to be buying Picasso paintings. This allows for a far more liquid trading environment for various different famous pieces of art because it means that now lots more people can group together and buy things to mean that there are always going to be more buyers. And you can see there's a lot of other different artwork pieces available where you could go and invest in different types of artwork, keeping and selling your share as and when you wish to. And also a major advantage here is if you hold and stake Artrade tokens, that you can then get discounts on some of the artwork stakes you invest in. You can also start to invest in other like luxury artworks or watches or luxury goods, etc., and get discounts on those items. So instead of paying like $2,400 for this Louis Vuitton bag, perhaps you can now get it for like $2,100 because you're holding tokens that allow you to get discounts on such items. And what I'm personally planning on doing with my personal Artrade tokens is going and staking them, because if you stake them for like 90 days or so, then you can earn up to 25% extra. Plus, you'll also get a share of their revenue. Now, there's already over 5,000 investors already invested in various different pieces of artwork from Artrade, and that number is growing all the time. This shows that this project is getting real adoption and is a very positive thing for the outlook of this project over the next few years. And given right now that Artrade is worth around $39 million in terms of market cap and is now putting in a nice healthy pullback, when real world assets and cryptos run once more, there's a very good chance that this goes and does a 10x, which means all of the extra rewards and everything else that is all being paid in Artrade means that that's also going to increase at that same rate. So this is like having a leveraged trade open where you can see leverage results in terms of the upside without having to have as such risk on the downside. Obviously you're locked, and if the crypto market does go lower, then obviously you can't sell, which I think around times like this where the market's a little bit shaky is probably a better thing for you, okay? Because the bull market will push on until late Q3 into Q4 of this year, like it does every single time, like this chart is telling you it's going to do. Now, if you're wondering where to buy these tokens, most of them won't be available on Coinbase or Binance because it's very difficult for new projects to get on Coinbase and Binance. Only once they've got billions of dollars of market caps will they ever get on there. So if you want to buy smaller market cap coins, then you need to use the link down below, come across to MEXC, which has over 4,000 different altcoins, also some of the lowest fees available across crypto. This is an exchange that I personally use every day. I also use Bitunix every day. It also has a huge amount of different tokens available, and it doesn't require a KYC. So wherever you are in the world, if you're finding it hard to use MEXC, simply sign up and get yourself a Bitunix account because you don't need to use KYC and you're going to be able to access anything you want there. Now, as I said about Artrade and real adoption taking place, it's very important within this particular narrative to see this adoption happening on chain because that allows us to see which are going to be the strongest projects over the coming years. Now, this comes from dyor.app and it's going to lead us onto which tokens to be looking at next. As we can see here, it's showing the growth of fees over the last 30 days. And you can see that Goldfinch, a real-world asset token that's been underperforming quite heavily recently, has actually seen a 2,170% increase in the last 30 days for its fees, which is absolutely ludicrous. Also seen some good growth across Pendle, Chainlink, and some others. Now, Goldfinch is one of the smaller market cap coins that I'm going to talk about today with around a $35.9 million market cap. Again, it does similar things to perhaps what you might see across the likes of Clearpool or Ondo or Mantra, but with a significantly smaller market cap that is showing that adoption is rolling back in with the growth of the fees. Now you can see you can earn real yields from real companies and even earn yourself up to 7.6% on your USDC. Now I know, a lot of you are probably wondering, well, yeah, what's 7.6%? Who really cares about 7.6%? We're in a crypto bull market, we're here for like 10 or 15x. Don't get me wrong, me too. But if you actually think about this, 7.6% is actually a pretty decent yield that you can get without having the risk exposure that perhaps we had back in the last bull market from certain crypto coins that were offering yields without anything to back them up. These are all backed up by actual companies outside of crypto that you can then go and lend money to and invest in and receive a yield back. And if you think about it, after a bull market, this is going to be very exciting because you can take the money you've made in a bull market and then go reaching out and make yourself other percentages on a USDC APY. So you just have to hold USDC. This company will take that money, it will lend it to various different companies out there, and you'll earn a yield back from that. This is a better percentage return than you would get for buying a house and letting it out somewhere, but far more liquid, as in you could sell it whenever you wish, move the money around, etc. Again, the good thing about a lot of these companies is they're pretty well regulated. And this one here, you can see, has already got $99 million worth of active loans created. And in the last 30 days, it's made a revenue of $100,000. That might not seem much, but when you look at crypto market caps versus revenue, this is actually like pretty decent. Okay, by the way that some crypto projects operate out there. So I do think that this is definitely worth looking into given what the chart is looking like right now. And look at it. Look at the attention that this got back last year when suddenly real world assets were blowing up. This coin will likely get that kind of attention once more, once real world assets suddenly come back into the limelight. And they will. You're only one piece of news or announcement away from seeing this price action return to real world asset coins. Now, what I was saying the other day is if you were involved in coins that were just sliding lower and lower and lower and not really showing any signs of return, then you should be cautious. But any coin that's been down here, back at the end of 2023, and has then climbed and started putting in these like higher lows, okay, is actually still looking pretty strong and has now seen a nice healthy pullback into a very interesting zone, which is why I wanted to look at Goldfinch. If I zoom out to a weekly chart, you can see that the original move here originated from literally the same area that we're at right now. This did a 5 or 6x in just a few weeks. Right now, we find ourselves entering back into this area of interest. And you can see last time Goldfinch dipped into this green box, it rallied out in a single week 124% and then 150% after a few more weeks. I do think that somewhere in and around this box for Goldfinch is a very decent entry indeed. And in fact, a coin that I might consider adding to my portfolio if it gets down a little bit further into this green area. This green box, goes from about 98 cents all the way up to $1.20, and in my opinion, at its current valuation, gives us a 10 to 20x without too much worry. Now, next up, and a coin that is already in my portfolio, is Brickken, at $25 million market cap. Now, as you can see, looking at the charts, Brickken has actually been outperforming the wider crypto market in a pretty impressive fashion. Since August, it's been up nearly 444% at times. It's currently up 198%, but still sitting around $25 million in market cap. Again, let's refer back to what happened to it in March of last year. It did an 11x in 2 weeks. These are the kind of coins I want to be paying attention to and at least have exposure to, so that when people stop looking at the AI and suddenly, all of a sudden, 1 or 2 days, real-world assets wake up, this is what can happen to them. Now, Brickken allows you to tokenize existing real-world assets. So, for example, if you own a company, you can create a token that is linked to your company and sell it to investors and give them a portion of the profits you make. And I'm personally thinking about doing this once this bull market starts to go and cool off. For example, creating a token for investments. Investors can come in, put money in. We can then go and buy things like property. We can go and invest in things like artwork and all sorts of other actual real-world assets. Users can then buy into the token and then earn profits as a portion of their earnings, and then own a token that is representative of some of our investments, which is great because previously, up until like crypto came around, many of us never had any exposure to being able to invest in like hotels or large-scale housing. If we're lucky, maybe we're buying a studio apartment somewhere to rent out for a few $100 a month. Okay, maybe some of you have been in property and buying lots more houses. But most of you, I'd imagine, in the past haven't been invested in like Picasso paintings or hotels or 12-bedroom beachfront houses, etc. This, in my opinion, is like leveling the playing field, giving far more opportunity to different individuals out there from an investment terms and from a business point of view as well. Much easier to raise money and capital, which has always been a bit of a problem for lots of new exciting ideas out there. Now, Brickken is already funded by the European Union and has various other accolades across the world. They've got around $12 million of assets under management, which is around 50% of their existing market cap, and they've already created $250 million worth of tokenized values. Therefore, various different companies they've gone away and tokenized, and this is the value that is. Let me know down below whether the House of Crypto should create a real-world asset tokenized fund to go and invest in different properties, and whether or not you would invest in that to be able to see some returns for the bear market so that we can continue to make gains and get ready for the next bull market that's going to start somewhere around 2028. Now, with a $25 million market cap, we've already seen it do nearly a 10x in just a week or two. Can it do that again? Well, absolutely. I don't see why this can't go 10, maybe 20x during this bull market, but seems to me to be a very solid project indeed. Now, as we look across to the chart, we can see that Brickken is simply putting in higher highs, higher lows. Recently, over the last few weeks, it's had a nice healthy pullback, nearly 46%, and is now starting to bounce out of this area. I'd say from around this area, Brickken looks to be a fairly reasonable entry point compared to where it was a few weeks ago. Now, before we jump on and talk about the last crypto project today, I do think it's worth mentioning to you. I know everyone down below will be like, well, what about this project? What about that one? What about this? You talked about this before. Guys, I only have a certain amount of time per video to talk about different crypto coins. There are a lot of real world asset projects that are really top quality that I don't have time to talk about in this video. I've selected the ones that I think are of interest because not only are they interesting and valuable projects, but they're also finding themselves at an incredible value point right now, having seen good, healthy pullbacks. And that is where I want you to be entering into crypto. I don't want you to be entering into the top of coins, which is I know what many people do in crypto, and that's why you find it so difficult when we see pullbacks. If you enter in after the pullbacks, times are going to be much better, which is why I'm focusing on these coins today rather than some others out there. And on that note, let's jump across and look at Lingo. Currently worth around $44 million at the time of making this video. Lingo is again a cutting-edge real-world asset platform. Now, Lingo boasts having the world's most rewarding token. The investors behind Lingo have already got around $3 billion of assets under management, which means Lingo has been trusted by them, therefore I can probably trust them. Now, within their ecosystem, they got various different deals with likes of Nike, Spotify, IKEA, some of the biggest names across the world that you already know. And effectively what they use these relationships and partnerships to do is to encourage you to buy and hold Lingo tokens. By buying and holding Lingo tokens, you will then accrue value not only in terms of rewards and real world rewards that you get across various different platforms, but also Lingo will go and use the money that you invest in Lingo tokens to invest in things like real estate, to invest in things like hotels. Kind of like what I said that I might do during a bear market, but you know what I mean. And from this, they're then able to make bigger reward payments and create better partnerships, etc. This then kind of gets on the flywheel, brings in more people, the token price goes up, You get the picture. But effectively, like many of the tokens I've talked about today, you're getting value not only just by holding the token and hoping that token goes up in value, but earning percentage rewards and various different things. I think projects like this and other real-world asset projects that I've talked about today will likely see far less volatility through the bull market and into the bear market than many other projects do. Why? Because you've probably seen that a lot of the coins I've been talking about today, their charts have been edging up higher while the rest of the crypto markets have been kind of chopping around. And that is because fundamentally all of these projects are actually bringing real world value. They're actually creating revenue that's feeding into their platforms. Many of these other projects like meme coins, etc., that don't create any revenue are purely driven by speculation. So when everyone buys them, the price goes up. When everyone sells them, the price goes down because there's nothing to then come in and support that price action. But when everyone's selling these particular tokens because the price is coming down a bit, guess what? These projects are still feeding money back into their treasury from their investments and things in the real world and from the fee generation and other things like that. And that, in my opinion, is something very important to remember. You're going to get far less volatility from projects that are generating revenue than perhaps you're going to get from other non-revenue generating crypto project. Now, in terms of where we likely see Lingo going in the future, again, they've got a team from some of the biggest names across Web 2 and Web 3, with some of the best marketing and growth strategy that I've seen across various different crypto projects, and a fairly steady looking chart that indicates that this is going to see a lot more excitement and attention coming as soon as Bitcoin decides to go up. When Bitcoin goes up, okay, then we're all going to forget about this kind of scary, worrying period that we're in, because we're going to see a lot of growth coming across the altcoins. Lingo, you can see from this chart, might seem a bit weird, okay, but it just obviously, this is basically the launch price. You can see it launched very aggressively, lots of people excited. Again, talking about that marketing team I talked about. You can see since then, had a nice pullback into this zone, 59, 60%. Been going sideways, bouncing out of this area quite safely. Again, once the market looked bullish again, you can see what happened, up 55% in just a few days. Right now, we're returning into that zone, starting to find support again, which will be a higher low here. That for me is a decent entry point. I think that we can see this again pushing 15x, maybe 20x, maybe even higher in the bull market. I've tried to keep it fairly conservative across these different crypto coins. I'm telling you the potential for these coins. They don't have to get there before you go and take exits on them. Obviously, we're looking to try and take profits somewhere into Q3, Q4 of this year, and I'll talk about that in future videos. If you want to know exactly when you should start taking profits, you want to know exactly when the market's getting overheated and whether or not you're getting carried away with things, then make sure you are subscribed to the House of Crypto with the notification bell turned on. It makes no sense just getting into cryptos that go up a lot if you don't sell them at some point. So you need to know when to sell them. Make sure you're subscribed and I'll tell you when that's going to be. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you maybe later on today with another video. Bye-bye.